Enshrouded is a massive open-world survival-based RPG where you begin with nothing and gradually build up your character around a specific combat playstyle. And as you explore, unlock skill points, gather gear, and defeat bosses, your build naturally advances into more specialized roles, from stealth-based assassins to heavy armored tanks or high-damage spellcasters. The game actually rewards experimentation, and most weapons and playstyles are viable as long as you understand how to pick the best skills, stats, and how the gear all works together. In this video, we'll be showcasing the top 5 builds for Enshrouded in this latest update, providing the best skills, gear setups, combat strategies, and of course, pros and cons to help you decide on the best build for you. Timestamps will be provided if you need to skip around or rewatch a section. And don't forget, we have written guides for each and every build on this list over on our website. That's hacktheminotaur.com. Links are down below in the description. First up, ranked number 5 is the Assassin build, which is a hybrid melee and ranged burst damage dealer focused on stealth and sneak attacks. The Assassin is unique in that you use damage over time, particularly the dual daggers, while also taking skills from the Beastmaster tree. The build uniquely focuses on stacking the dexterity attribute, as this boosts both the damage of daggers and bows, allowing for a single primary offensive stat, which greatly helps to simplify things. This dagger and bow setup got even more love in Enshrouded's latest update 7, with 2 important passive skills, quick reflex block and expose weakness, as a massive damage burst potential of 25% after critical strikes with daggers, giving you even more burst damage potential. But like we said, you'll also be pulling from the Beastmaster skill tree for dagger perks like Dagger Master and Poison Blades, plus the Ranger skill tree for bow skills like Multi-Shot and pure damage increases, along some solid survivability from skills like Battle Heal from the tank tree. Basically, the way the Assassin build works revolves around positioning to land sneak attacks, opportunity attack, or the crucial backstab for absolutely insane damage. Also, the double jump skill is pretty useful for assassins as well, as it can greatly boost mobility, allowing you to evade enemies and reach better positions during both combat and exploration. In terms of pros for the Assassin build, it is extremely versatile, doing well in both melee combat with daggers and ranged combat with a bow, all scaling, like we said, off your primary stat of dexterity. As we mentioned, you have huge burst damage potential through sneak attacks, backstab, and the stun arrow setup, making it effective, especially against tougher bosses. Plus, you have great options for damage over time, particularly daggers that can apply poison, and shroud arrows that apply shroud damage, allowing you to deal passive damage while repositioning yourself in combat. In terms of cons for the Assassin build, it is more fragile and relies heavily on the Battle Heal critical hit passive and gear with Health Leech, because you are going to lack some of the passive healing of more intelligence-based builds. It is more resource intensive, requiring constant crafting of healing items like potions and bandages, plus those specialized arrows we mentioned like stun and explosive arrows for the best damage and survivability. Plus, more than most builds in Enshrouded, the Assassin is very position dependent, which should be obvious because your backstab damage especially is tied to attacking targets from behind or while hidden, making high combat mobility a necessity. Now, in terms of attributes, like we said, dexterity is going to be most important for the Assassin build. In Enshrouded, this is because the daggers and bows increase in damage from both based on the dexterity attribute. Secondarily, though, you could consider Constitution for more max health and the scaling of the Battle Heal ability. Speaking of which, your best skills to invest in on an Assassin build include Dagger Master, Poison Blades, Multi-Shot, Battle Heal, Ranger, and Slice and Dice. Now keep in mind there are now over 180 available nodes in the Enshrouded skill tree after update 7, so I can't put everything here. Make sure to check out the written guide down below for our full leveling build with over 90 plus recommended skill nodes and which to unlock in the best order. But finally though, in terms of gear, the best armor set for the Assassin build is the Frostbite Slasher because it directly boosts dagger and backstab damage. In update 7, they did add 2 new craftable gear sets from the Blacksmith and the Hunter, but those do boost other weapons, not the dagger. So you want to basically mix in that Frostbite set with other Blacksmith gear to get more health, like legs and chest piece. In terms of weapons, Broodmother's Eye is going to be the best weapon, being a dagger for the Assassin build because they deal poison damage and increase backstab. Overall though, look for weapons that increase critical chance, critical damage, and backstab potential. And for a secondary weapon, the Avalanche starter bow is going to be best in slot for most content, giving you a solid ranged damage option when you need it. But as I said, we have a ton more info in the written guide for this one, including many more gear options for early, mid, and late game, the best consumables, and the full leveling guide, so make sure to check that out if you are interested. Coming up next on our list is the Wizard build, the basic glass cannon for Enshrouded, boasting raw magical damage in AoE above all else. The primary weapon for the Wizard build will be the staff, which requires short charge ups but delivers massive AoE damage with spells like Eternal Fireball. Utilizing the Acid Bite spell or skill combo can further boost the Wizard's damage output, especially when synergizing with the staff in combat. This build will pull skills from the Wizard, Battlemage, and Healer skill trees, focusing on maximizing the Intelligence attribute, which not only scales damage but also enhances some good passive healing effects like Water Aura and defensive skills like Radiant Aura. Update 7 makes the Wizard a bit more difficult to play because of some mana sustain issues, though there is also a new buff called Soaked, which you can apply to enemies for even more bonus damage. In terms of pros for the Wizard build, they are pretty much the best AoE damage dealer in the game, with spells and skills like Mass Destruction allowing the Wizard to easily clear large groups of enemies quickly, dominating general combat. Their synergy with the Intelligence attribute helps them scale damage, along with passive healing from Water Aura at the same time, making them very efficient, and they are one of the strongest builds in endgame due to their exceptional range and built-in sustain through passive healing. But in terms of cons, they are, like we said, a glass cannon with extremely low survivability and dependence on constitution and mobility to compensate for low armor and defensive passives. You can get interrupted, as some staff spells do require a charge time, which leaves the Wizard vulnerable to interruption if enemies get too close, and they are dependent on mobility, especially things like Blink, to manage their distance to survive and maintain spell uptime, which also relies on stamina. Now, the most important stat to increase on the Wizard build, as we said, is Intelligence. This not only increases your damage, but also many other skills and passive healing. Water Aura heals you per second based on your Intelligence, while Life Burst also gives you health when killing an enemy. So you need to prioritize max Intelligence with accessories and skills to get the most out of the Wizard build. Second most important attribute probably is Constitution. You do need a massive health pool to survive incoming blows plus shroud damage in this game. The Spirit attribute can be helpful, but there are many ways to regenerate mana, specifically swapping to the wand and attacking with the Unity skill along with mana leech traits on your weapons. The best skills overall for the Wizard include Blink, Water Aura, Radiant Aura, Wizard, and Mass Destruction. You will want to focus primarily on the Wizard and Healer skill trees that increase your damage, help mobility, and provide that passive healing. The Mass Destruction and Chain Hit at the end of the Wizard tree makes your build an AoE monster. However, we do start the skill selections with some utility, with skills like Double Jump and Survival before moving into higher damage. Because of that, the build does start slow, but really picks up around level 15 plus, where damage starts to skyrocket. The best gear for the Wizard build is the Tidecaller set because it increases staff damage, magical crit chance, and critical damage. Unlike the Battlemage, which we'll see, the Wizard should use nearly all of the Tidecaller set with the Golden Bulwark legs for the extra health. Other pieces like the Circlet of Lightning are extremely good as they can increase your critical chance versus soaked enemies. In terms of weapons, the Staff of Taurus is probably the best Wizard weapon right now, mainly because it balances offensive firepower with mana regeneration, which you need a bit more of in Update 7. However, you'd ideally like your staff, wand, and skills to all match the same elemental type for optimal build synergy. Also, you could check out the Violet Staff, as this thing is absolutely nuts for the additional critical chance versus soaked targets. But you should look to combine this with the best spell for the Wizard currently, which is Eternal Chain Lightning, using shock damage, a much faster cast time, and less mana. The strength of Eternal Chain Lightning is that it does single target damage, can jump to other enemies, and it fills up their stun meter. You could also take the Terror skill in the Trickster skill tree and constantly stun on criticals or fill up the enemy's bar after multiple casts. Plus, it's double the speed of Fireball. But just make sure you take the shock damage increase passives once you unlock and craft this spell at the Alchemist. But overall, the Wizard is the top tier damage dealer for players who like the high risk, high reward playstyle. The Wizard unlocks a ton of destructive potential, but also requires a lot of mobility and movement so you don't get overwhelmed. That said, this build can be frustrating without high HP and having to use the constant dodge, aka the blink, to get out of the way of enemies, so if it weren't for the lower survivability, I'd probably rank the Wizard a bit higher on this list. But if you want the most aggressive in-your-face combat, then the Barbarian is the build for you, ranking as the third best build in Enshrouded. The Barbarian build uses massive two-handed weapons along with jump attacks for damage, both single target and AoE. The core of this build really is maximizing the strength attribute for raw damage and then pair that with high constitution to enable some great passive self-healing via the Battle Heal passive, which gives 5% max health restored on melee critical hits. Update 7 also added a unique passive to the warrior tree called Titan Edge. This gives you 10% more damage with the new weapon type, the Greatsword. And not only that, but the Whirlwind skill was added in Barbarian, giving you a 3 to 4 button swing combo, resulting in huge AoE damage in a 360-degree radius. However, it can be hard to pull this off with a Greatsword because of the interrupts, and it does cost a ton of stamina. Overall, this is the best melee build though in the game, but struggles a bit with bosses in comparison to number 1 and 2 on this list, which we'll see in just a minute. But overall pros for the Barbarian build, it's the highest melee damage in the game. It has insane self-sustain, plus you can get massive damage via the Blood Rage buff, where killing a low HP enemy activates Blood Rage for a 20% damage boost. In terms of cons for the Barbarian build, it is obviously very focused on melee, making you vulnerable to ranged attackers and requiring careful use of the ground hook skill or swapping to off-spec weapons like the bow or wand for utility. It is also pretty stamina intensive, with the core offensive loop requiring the jump attack, running, dodging, etc., so you can deplete your stamina, especially early on in the game. And your damage is basically tied to specific weapon types, like blunt weapons for example, and their corresponding passives, which does limit your weapon flexibility. But in terms of attributes, Barbarian damage does scale in effectiveness with the strength stat. Therefore, you want to pour as many skill points as you can into strength, and also use food to increase even more damage. Your second most important stat will be Constitution, which increases health. This is the best way to passively heal via the Battle Heal node. So dealing critical damage with melee weapons will heal you for 5% of your maximum health. And in terms of skills here, you'll want to mix many important nodes from the Warrior skill tree, the Barbarian skill line, and others to optimize this build. Just make sure you stick with one weapon type, as we said, like Axe for example, and cutting damage to make sure your skills align throughout the skill tree. At the start of the game, picking up double jump, that's your go-to ability, letting you attack constantly, get space, and do AoE damage. And then you want to swap to more single target attacks for healing, and eventually killing low HP targets to trigger Blood Rage, giving you that huge 20% damage boost for 20 seconds. Plus, don't forget to pick up the Barbarian node itself, plus Battle Heal as soon as possible for the sustain. But in terms of gear, the best armor for the Barbarian is in Update 7 is the Sun Piercer set, because you gain two-handed damage, critical strike chance, and critical damage. When assembling the best armor and gear, make sure you have enough survivability as well. Typically, you can get this by using the Gemini rings, which give you access to Life Leech. You can also find other items as well with Life Leech throughout the game. But the best weapon for the Barbarian in Update 7 is the Champion's Axe. Now, this two-handed axe gives bonuses to Health Leech, making you very survivable. Plus, you need to only take 3 swings to activate Whirlwind, rather than 4 with a Greatsword. So while Greatswords get more damage via one specific passive, it is harder to reliably get 4 swings without interruption. But all in all, the Barbarian is the best choice for a tanky melee DPS style build. Its incredible damage output combined with their amazing self-sustain makes you an unstoppable force, both for solo and group play. It also rewards a more aggressive play style and is very effective at the current endgame, basically one-shotting most enemies and bosses after executing a proper stun and backstab combo. However, the main drawback, of course, is the lack of a range option, which does make some boss fights more difficult. But moving on to number 2, the Battlemage build in Enshrouded has great survivability and utility in combat by combining the defensive capabilities of a wand and shield with magical damage and healing, playing basically as a hybrid tank / spellcaster with very good damage as well. Now, the major change in terms of the Battlemage skill line was adding a shroud resistance and group buff called Shared Misery. This gives the skill line even more utility now in Update 7, but most importantly, you have more skill points to use. So you can max out the most important skills in Battlemage, Healer, Wizard, and even the Tank skill tree, with the game favoring more survivability and resource sustain versus raw damage. The Wand Battlemage build is really good at endgame. In terms of pros, like I mentioned, high survivability. The Wand and Shield combo here allows for blocking and parrying, providing great damage mitigation that typical caster builds usually lack. You have great mana sustain with the Wand naturally restoring mana, which minimizes the resource issues that you'll get and allowing for more sustained combat, plus tons of group utility. Skills like Tower and Warden provide very strong buffs and healing, plus Water Aura makes the Battlemage ideal for group play. In terms of cons, though, you do have lower raw damage, with your focus being more on survival, with the Wand limiting your overall burst potential. Your optimal endgame gear does require mixing sets to balance scaling and health, and carrying multiple weapons, the Wand Shield for defense and sustain, and the Staff for more AoE or heavy spells to handle different combat situations effectively. In terms of attributes, the Battlemage scales primarily with intelligence, which increases your wand damage, spell power, and healing effects. Intelligence also boosts Water Aura's passive healing and Life Burst or other passive healing bonuses that scale with max intelligence, so the more intelligence you have, the more powerful everything you do will become. Your second most important stat is pretty much what we always say in these, being Constitution. The Battlemage's power lies in being able to survive in close quarters combat, so high health gives more room for mistakes during parries and synergizes well with healing passives like Water Aura. So with high enough Constitution and damage reduction skills, you can basically absorb nearly any attack and quickly heal to full with your staff. As far as building out your skills for the Battlemage, you do want to prioritize survival first with Battlemage, Healer, and Tank skill trees. Once you start unlocking your wand passives, your damage will increase though. You can swap to the staff later on after some wizard skills and do even more AoE damage. Plus, if you like to play with friends, you can look to some tank buffs and even the Nemesis skill to get aggro for other players versus resistances. Some other skills to look forward to include Wandmaster, Life Burst, and Blink. Now, the best gear set for the Battlemage is currently the Tidecaller and Sunpiercer sets. The Tidecaller set, specifically the headpiece, is the highest source of magic critical chance and critical damage. However, there is the more powerful version of gloves called the Flaming Gauntlets. These are found at the northwestern part of the map, in an area of the map called Gateway Outpost Enflame, which really buff the fire aspect of this build. Your chest and lower body could be used for more raw stats, with the Sunpiercer chestplate giving you a massive 360 health bonus, while the Golden Bulwark pants give an additional 135. This combination altogether gets you close to 1600 or more health, as much as the Barbarian, but without all the skill points invested into Constitution. When it comes to rings and accessories, use the Gemini rings or the Ring of the Ancients, depending on your survivability. For weapons, you want to synergize with fire magic for the Battlemage build as much as possible, like we mentioned with the Flaming Gauntlets, so something like Polymath's Wand will be a great option for this, or you could also use the Mythic Wand for a more balanced stat setup. Finally, in terms of spells, the Magic Shield spell was added in Update 7 and allows you to pre-buff with a massive shield that lasts for 45 seconds or after damage is taken. Also, make sure to keep Eternal Ice Bolt, Fireball, and other spells with you at all times. Eternal Ice Bolt is nice when you need a single target ranged stun via the Terror passive, while Fireball is going to be great for large-scale AoE fights. But that brings us to our number one build in Enshrouded, the Archer, aka the Ranger build. The Archer in Enshrouded is still ranked as the best overall in my opinion because of its range damage, its survivability, mobility, and resource sustain all wrapped into one build. The Archer can have both incredible offense and high survivability by blending the Ranger skill tree with passive healing from the intelligence-based healer tree. This build maximizes the dexterity attribute to boost your bow damage while also dipping a little bit into intelligence for passive healing like Water Aura. This combination, alongside explosive AoE skills like Chain Reaction and Multi-Shot, allows the Archer to basically destroy groups of enemies from a safe distance with constant self-sustain. The end result here is a low-effort, high-reward playstyle that basically dominates the endgame in Enshrouded. In Update 7, the Archer remains the dominant DPS and survival machine. You have the most AoE damage, sustain, and range of any build, and while there aren't any skills added to the Ranger tree itself, there was a nice upgrade to those special explosive arrows, you can expect even more damage, both AoE and single target. Fighting the newest boss to upgrade your Flame Altar to level 9 is basically easy mode on the Archer in comparison to any other build. With skills like Blink, Strafe, Explosive Arrows, everything just dies on this one. It is annoying still to craft black powder constantly, but the upside on this just cannot be beat. In terms of attributes, the Archer will still focus primarily on dexterity, as I said, with some intelligence because the Water Aura passive is still strong. Dexterity is your most important stat though, because it directly boosts your bow and arrow effectiveness. So when placing your skill points, always aim to maximize dexterity first, as this will make your arrows hit harder and your critical hits hit harder as well. And for skill trees, you want to maximize ranger skills that directly enhance that range damage. The other priority though is the assassination skill tree, because it has so many bonuses to arrows and explosive damage. Survivor is also a good one for Desert Stomach and resource regeneration. Make sure to pick up specific skills like Shell Shock, Chain Reaction, Multi-Shot, Water Aura, Ranger, and Sharpshooter, as those are all bread and butter skills on the Archer build. The best armor for the Archer in Update 7 will be the Quetzal Hunter set. This set boosts your bow and skill shot damage while also giving a bonus to sprint speed and overall stamina. You can mix in 1 or 2 Sun Piercer pieces on your chest or legs, for example, for more health, and the Skull Stalker gloves for even more skill shot damage. Best endgame bow currently is the Avalanche Starter Bow. Overall, you can change your bows depending on your needs and playstyle. I would say don't upgrade bows unless they are legendary though, or max quality. In Update 7, that's level 50 once fully upgraded. You obtain these via gold chests in or around level 45 enemy zones. We do have an updated guide for chest farming too, by the way, in Update 7 for Enshrouded, which I'll link down below, that makes getting these legendary weapons even easier. But the Archer is still the undisputed S tier build for Enshrouded. While you do need to farm materials for arrows, the payoff is still a versatile, high mobility DPS machine, which is capable of insane single target damage, AoE control, and great sustain. It's still the best all-around option for players who want to invest the time in preparation, and is likely to remain for many updates and patches the best build in Enshrouded. But if this video helped you at all, do me a favor and crush that like button so YouTube knows to share this video with others. It is greatly appreciated. As always, don't forget to check out our written guides down in the description below for even more details on every single build in this video, like early, mid-game, and end-game gear, full leveling progression guides, consumables, and much more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you around in the next video.